Okay, welcome out to one of the first of hopefully many banjo tutorials that I'm going to do. And to set a foundation of learning the banjo and really most any instruments, if you don't have first off the basis of music theory might help. But we're gonna start the lesson in tuning, and there's a default, and we're on a 5-string banjo, and there's a default tuning. The nice thing with the banjo is that it starts out with a nice chord. So I don't have to be able to use my left hand to make something sound nice. So that's already in the key of G. So as opposed to like a guitar or a violin or pretty much any other string instrument out there, the banjo is pre-tuned for you into a certain key, and that's G. So when we're looking at the individual strings on the banjo, it is a little bit funky. Most string instruments, they go from low to high, and the banjo generally does that, but it reverses one of the strings. So when you're looking at the top of the drum here, the top string, it's the highest note, and then it goes down to the lowest note, and then it proceeds to scale up. Okay, so let's go through the individual notes so you know which one's which. This high note here, the very top, right there, which we'll call the 5th string, that one is the G. And if you were to look at the keyboard on like a piano, that would be the G above middle C. So the G above middle C is string number 5, and we're going to work our way down. So now we're going to go to the lowest pitch, which is string number 4. It's right below string number 5, which is a D. So again, still in the chord of G, but that string is a D. So we've got our high G for string number 5, a low D for string number 4. Now that D, if you were to look at a keyboard, would be the D below middle C. And then it just scales up. So from a D, that low D, then we go to a G again, which is string number 3. That would be the G below middle C. Then you have a B. That B would be the B below middle C. And then finally a high D. So you have a low D and a high D. That high D is string number 1. And that D would be the D right above middle C. Okay, so to review, string number 5, that's high G, down to a low D for string number 4, G for string 3, B for string 2, and finally D for string 1. Okay, so that's the default tuning, and probably once there are endless numbers of songs to play with that tuning setup. There are some other tuning keys that get frequently used. So one of them is actually a G minor. So it's easy to change. You'll take this B string here, string number 2, and you move it down a half step. And it'll sound like this when I do it. Okay, so it goes from and now, strummed together, it sounds like this. There's some fun arrangements out of that minor chord. Sometimes, let me bring it back up to a G major. Sometimes you have something else, like there's a song that actually brings down this high G to an F sharp. You actually don't use, when in the songs that are written for this, it's actually a way of getting to a D chord. So that F sharp instead of the G up high, a lot of the songs written with this end up being a D. So I'm actually using my left hand here, but it makes it easier because since you can see this, generally speaking, on your left hand, you don't use the frets up here very much. So rather than change everything to make a D key of a bass tuning, you can just change that high G to an F sharp, and then using the left hand further down when you play, it makes it easier to make a D chord kind of sounding like this. Okay? All right. So, but there are other songs that are in a legitimate D tuning. So we've already done one. We've changed that high G and brought the high G down to an F sharp. But then we have to change the rest of the other notes to make what would be a D chord. So a G, if the high G goes to an F sharp, that middle G needs to go to an F sharp too. So it's a half step down. Now, what do we do with the B? You have to take it a whole step down to an A. So from B, and then all together it sounds like that. It's just a different way of tuning the banjo, and what's actually fun is because I feel like there's more songs with different tunings on banjos than any other instrument. Like, you don't retune a violin. Sometimes you might retune a guitar, but most people just use a capo. So the banjo is fun that way because you get to do different tunings to make the sound you want. So, okay, so we've done essentially 4 different kinds of bass tunings. We've done the default G, G minor. We have done a D where you only change the highest G. So it has like a base of a G tuning, but most of the songs you actually play in a D tuning. And then we've changed to the legitimate D tuning where we change the high G, the low G, and the B string. So that's kind of an overview of different tunings of the banjo. I would, if you're starting out, you just stick with that G tuning. There's too much to do with it before you delve into anything else. And run with it. We'll see you next time.